In 1972, industrial Varna revealed a necropolis more than 6,000 years old. Among nearly 300 graves lay one of the world's oldest collections of worked gold. Before gold became a foundation of the system, its story looked like this. At the beginning, there were only legends about gold, ancient stories of gold. It was spoken of as a metal attributed to gods and rulers. The earliest traces of gold appeared in prehistoric Europe, found in river sediments and shallow streams. This precious metal was mined in the mountains of Anatolia, washed from river deposits, and obtained in the mountain lands east of Mesopotamia, and farther still in the lands of present-day Afghanistan. Only later, through trade, tribute, and intermediary routes, did it reach Mesopotamia. Gold still remained rare. Grain, silver, and copper dominated exchange. Over time, gold moved by land routes and river transport into the developing cities of Mesopotamia. It was not yet the main instrument of payment. At first, it appeared only occasionally as a rare metal, a gift, and a sign of prestige. There, gold began to receive weight. It was weighed, controlled, and recorded on clay tablets, often in temples, where offerings, storage, and accounting became part of one system. At times, it was exchanged directly for goods. In some places, authorities began collecting and controlling its flow. Beneath the cities, networks of canals, fields, and roads expanded. Water directed through embankments and control points became a source of dispute. Goods moved along caravan routes, but rivalry moved with them. Local conflicts appeared near canals, roads, and field borders. What began beyond the walls increasingly reached the city gates. Small clashes turned into fights between cities. Cities fell into flames. After the burned cities came rebuilding and stronger control. In Babylon, Hammurabi recorded one of the most famous law codes of the ancient world. The law regulated debts, property, trade, labor, and punishments. Cities strengthened their walls, gates, and towers. Guards and soldiers stood at entrances, storehouses, and keep points inside the city. The military increasingly protected order, resources, and power. Temples and priests gathered records, goods, and precious metal. What was accumulated was guarded more and more tightly. After Hammurabi, Babylonian control did not collapse at once, but it began to weaken. Order had been written into law, but canals, fields, and trade routes still determined the strength of cities. Temples gathered stores, records, and precious metal, while elites concentrated power more tightly. Storehouses, walls, and armies grew with inequality. For centuries, cities and kingdoms again fought over water, land, routes, and resources. War became the final instrument of control. Cities burned, competing centers lost authority. The old Babylonian state eventually fell, but the mechanism remained. Whoever controlled resources controlled people. For centuries after Hammurabi, Mesopotamia passed through conquest, collapse, and rebuilding. Cities rose, fell, and returned under new rulers. In the 6th century before the Common Era, under Nebuchadnezzar II, Babylon returned at a different scale as the center of a restored empire. The city expanded through walls, gates, palaces, temples, storehouses, and great roads leading into its center. It became a monumental image of power, organization, and control. In later Babylon, gold became part of imperial scale, measured against silver, recorded in accounts, and tied to the wealth of a state larger than the city itself. Gold was no longer only a rare metal circulating between cities. It belonged to empire. Egypt was a power rising in parallel, shaped by different structures. The Nile brought fertile land and growing settlements. Wealth emerged from water, soil, and stability. Authority expanded along the Nile, organizing labor and settlements. Agriculture sustained growth across the region. Gold began appearing in limited amounts. The hard labor of thousands shaped symbols that endured to this day. In Egypt, stone became an instrument of power. The building of pyramids was not a single act, but the result of generations of organization, labor, and control. From Djoser's pyramid to Giza, the state learned to direct people, transport, food, and stone on a scale not seen before. The pyramids were not only tombs. They proved that a ruler could bind time, labor, and space to one purpose. In this war, gold was not yet everyday money. Its meaning rose higher around the ruler, the gods, death, and eternity. After the age of the pyramids, the meaning of gold continued to grow. It was no longer only ornament and ritual. The metal became tied to the ruler, the temples, and the state. This changed the direction of power. The most important sources lay to the south, in Nubia and along the desert routes connected to the Nile. At first, Egypt reached them through trade, expeditions, and controlled the movement. But trade was not enough. Over time, soldiers moved south. Routes were secured. Settlements were watched. Access to gold became a military objective. Forts rose near the frontier and along the Nile corridors. In later centuries, Nubia was brought under stronger Egyptian control. What began as the search for a rare metal became a system of occupation. Control over gold became control over the south. In Nubia, gold was no longer a distant rumor. It became a controlled objective. The desert was opened by paths, camps, gods, and forced labor. Rock was broken, ore was carried, and the work moved under the pressure of administration and soldiers. This was not the gold of legend anymore. It was extraction. It was transport. Mines expanded across the southern routes, and every stage had to be watched. The workers, the loads, the animals, the river crossings, and the movement north. Gold left the mines in measured quantities, passed through hands, scales, records, caravans, and boats, and entered Egypt as state power along the Nile. Wealth was no longer only being gathered. Nubian gold entered the hands of the state and became fuel for temples, armies, and pharaonic power.